Gentlemen, please give a warm round of applause to the dapper devil himself, Denis on air.
Should I be there? Should I be there? I'll be here. They all very different feels.
I'll be here to do. God. Hi, y'all. Hi. I mean, hi.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions for you. But I have a few questions myself, and then we're going to let folks.
3, 2, 1. Is this working?
I think is it on?
No.
3, 2, 1.
So I wanted to start. You started acting at a young age.
I did.
You did. At what point did you know like this was your passion? This was your career. This is what you were going to do for a living.
At 59. I was a musician. My mom. Oh, wait. Cinderella.
Say yeah, I'm here. I have a VIP. I'm gonna make it. I have the monster downstairs.
Fantastic. My assistant Helga.
My assistants. Oh, thank you.
What have I done?
Maybe I can help you.
I'm a musician. My mother was a musician. She was a church organist. My grandmother was a cellist on the radio in Pittsburgh. And so I started playing piano and organ when I was 5. My uncle was a violinist for the Detroit Symphony. My aunt was a cellist for Winnipeg Symphony. So I sort of was raised in a classical household, and I started playing. I played recorder. I was an oboe nerd. I wanted to build my own harpsichord when I was 12. That was my idea of how to spend your money. And I was in the Madrigal Society in high school. I mean, really sexy stuff. Anyone know the Silver Swan? Silver Swan! Anybody? Oh my God, it's great.
Sexy.
Yeah, thank you. Anyway, and then I started doing high school musicals, and I kind of got roped in that way. And but it was all through music, and it wasn't until I went to a place called Cranbrook, which is a very serious art school in Michigan, that I got introduced to Stanislavski and the idea of building the Russian School of Acting. And so I got really interested in that, and then I came back, sort of transformed. By the time I was 18 or 19, I decided to I got accepted into opera school at University of Michigan, because I was a voice student, and I also got accepted into acting school at Northwestern. And I decided to go to Northwestern, and I sort of I did one opera, and then I just kind of forgot about singing for about 20 years, and just did straight plays. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a nice segue because you've played this incredible range of roles, dramatic roles throughout your career, and I'm just kind of curious: is horror something that's you've always been a fan of, or was it just did you just discover it through acting? Yeah.
I mean, I loved horror myself. So when I was a kid, I was way into Peter Lorre and Vincent Price. I mean, I just thought Peter Lorre, Hung the Moon, and Boris Karloff, and all the old, all the old monster things. I mean, when I think about 9, I got a book called How to Feed Your Monsters. And a picture of Frankenstein under a stairway and somebody feeding him. And that was sort of where my head was at. I was very much into them. I was a vampire when I was, I think, 9 or 10. I was on crutches because I had a weird hip disease, and so I remember I had my cape and my crutches and flying around south of Michigan begging for Baby Ruth bars. And but I was a werewolf one year. Cotton stuck all over my face, very painful. My mother, who was such a kooky, wonderful person, would dress up as a witch and then sit in the porch of our house, motionless, like she was stuffed, and wait for people to come up, and she would go, ha 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 ha! She loved it, you know what I mean? So I was sort of bred for it. But I didn't do any horror until later in my career because I was always told, oh no, horror is a career killer. Don't do it, don't do bad movies, don't do bad movies. And then what was my first horror film? I think it was Quarantine. It was my first out and out horror film. and genre film. And then True Blood came along, and then Horror Story, and then it was like blah, blah, blah. But what I would say to people who don't understand horror or like True Blood, I'll talk about True Blood for instance. They're like, oh my God, you're in that stupid vampire series. And I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing about the stupid vampire series. Here's the scene you have to do. You're eating on Deborah Ann Wool's neck when you sense from 75 miles away that your ancient lover, Talbot, has been incinerated and killed by the Viking, Eric. You intuit this and feel this, and so you fly into the air, you land in your mansion, and you see his plasma on the ground, and you mourn him in a dramatic fashion. Go. That's horror acting. You know what I mean? It's not, you're in the courtroom and they produce evidence that your transaction was fraudulent. Reaction. You know what I mean? It's like everything is epic, and it has to be real. It's not fake. It's real stuff, and so you're bringing real acting chops. It's like Shakespeare, and it's huge. And that's what I love about it, is that you're being asked to produce huge emotions in this thing.
That's great. Even in just the horror genre itself, you've played this incredible range of characters as well. You go from playing very sympathetic characters to like downright villainous characters. Yeah. How do you approach that, like from an acting point of view? Like, where do you draw inspiration from for? How do you go from like to those ranges of characters? Sorry.
Well, it's funny, I rarely say no to a character or a job, and I've played a lot of really creepy people. Most of my characters, though, I don't consider ever to be, creepy or villains. They're outsiders, they're misunderstood, they have a different point of view, and my job as an actor is never to make fun of them. I've never made fun of a character. If I can't do a character, I'll say no. And so there was years ago, it was a Kevin Bacon film he wanted me to do where I played like a businessman who didn't understand that they were bringing soldiers home in a plane, and I was like, no, I'm not playing this part because you want me to be the asshole. And I'll be the asshole if I have a point of view, but I'm not going to be your joke. So I said no to the part. I was meant to play a serial killer in a movie. It was like a torture thing, and I said, I can't do torture porn because there's no character. It's simply for the effect. So I have to have a motivation, and the motivation can't just be that I like to kill people. There has to be something else going on for me. So, none of my characters, from my point of view, do anything wrong. So Larry in Horror Story of Murder House, he does absolutely nothing wrong. You know what I mean? His wife and kids were burned in a tragic fire. He at one point meets up with Dylan McDermott's character, and he's ripped off by him. He's owed $100, doesn't get $100. Everything he does, he's asked to kill a woman, which he does because he's asked to. You know what I mean? In a weird way, so in his point of view, he's never a villain. He's got a point of view. Spaulding, has his tongue cut out for love of the woman he works for. He's noble, and then ends up living in this strange attic and protecting the secrets for all the witches. He's performing a service for them. So it's for me, it's about constructing a world where I have a very strong point of view, and I have reasons for doing everything I'm doing. Nothing is arbitrary.
Right. That's great. Specific to American Horror Story, what brought you into, what attracted you to the show initially, and what keeps you coming back? For all these great roles that you play.
I didn't know. I was in season 1. I got a phone call from Ryan Murphy asking me to be in this thing. No one had ever heard of it because it hadn't existed yet. So I read the script and I didn't get it. I was like, I don't get this. This is really weird. But I was told that he was really great and really creative, and you'd have to say yes. And so I was like, okay. My first day shooting was with Ryan and Dylan McDermott, and I was shooting my confession scene as Larry, confessing that he had burned up his family. And I find out in episode 5, I didn't burn my family. I'm like, what? I thought I burned my family. And I'm like, well, who burned me? And they're like, no one's telling. So, I remember having a discussion with Jessica Lange once. I was like, well, do you think you burned me? And she was like, I probably burned you. I'm like, okay. And then we find out that Evan Peters burned me. I'm like, why did he burn me? What is going on? So, and part of it is, Horror Story is deeply, I don't want to say dysfunctional, but it's really a crazy, wild ride. And so that's part of what keeps me coming back. The characters are really rich and interesting. I love the world it inhabits. I love the fact that it's different every year. I love the fact that we have different actors to play with every year. Sometimes you get to play with the same people. I was very lucky to work with Jessica Lange on 3 seasons, Kathy Bates on 3 seasons, and it's like a rep company. And we get to interact, and that doesn't happen in a whole lot of places.
It's interesting, and just as a quick follow-up, what is that like as an actor, when you don't have those answers going in? So you said you didn't know who burned you, didn't know that you didn't burn your family. How does that affect your performance, or how does that work for you?
Well, Thaisa Farmiga, who played the girl in season 1, didn't know she was dead for 3 episodes because no one told her. Which meant that she didn't play someone who was dead, which is a different quality. If she had known, she probably couldn't have helped of doing something to indicate, and then the character didn't know the character was dead. So in a weird way, Ryan was like, well, then why should the actor know? So, and I've heard someone else say in TV, look, you don't know what you're going to do tomorrow. You have no idea what's going to happen to you tomorrow. Why should the actors know what's going to happen to their characters tomorrow? So I kind of like that. At the same time, I'm a trained actor. I know what I'm doing. So if I know everything, I can make different choices, and I can sort of decide with the director how to do that. So it's a toss-up. I mean, I sort of like not knowing. If I knew, I would make different choices.
Okay. I saw in an earlier interview that you don't like choosing favorite characters.
No.
But it's Liz, right? but really, with Liz, playing Liz Taylor, that season was so interesting to me because it felt like, you've got serial killers and vampires and ghosts and all this stuff happening, and yet the whole season felt very grounded by Liz's story. And was that the plan from the beginning, or did that evolve as the show developed, that season developed? Was Liz always meant to be kind of the end game? Because I feel like for me, that's the real end of the show, is Liz's story.
I don't think so. I don't think they knew what they were doing. Depending on what show you're doing, sometimes they know. Some showrunners write everything, and they've got the whole idea planned out. You have a master plan. Some don't. Ryan is a very instinctual creator, so he creates off of feelings and off of images and off of a general idea for a storyline. And many times what they do is they sort of, as you're writing, you're discovering who these people are. In Horror Story, they're often not that far ahead of us. So we're shooting, and they're not that far ahead of us. They're still writing. And we've had seasons. I know season 1 where I got a script. They sent it to me on the plane from New York to LA. I lived in New York. I was told you have to shoot tomorrow. I was like, I'm in New York. And then when you shoot tomorrow, I was like, okay, but I'm going to get on a plane. I got in a plane. I landed at 6 in the morning. They sent the pages, and I didn't get them on the plane because that was before Wi-Fi on the plane. And they landed to my inbox, and it's a 4-page scene. I have a monologue. And I'm like, okay. But it was only 1 act of a 4-act script. So I'm like, what happens in the episode? I have no idea. We have 1 act. So we shot that act. And and I shot that scene that morning with Jessica. We're running our lines as we're going to set, and so they are nimble in that they can react to what we're doing. We also many times were showing Horror Story while we were producing it. So it was airing while we were still in production.
Oh, wow.
So you were actually getting audience reaction while we were still making it. At one point we were only like 2 episodes ahead of the airtime, and they were like postponing certain episodes because we weren't ready. So in that case, in case of a hotel, I'm not sure how far ahead they were, but I know that they also watch us, what we're doing, and they get inspired by us, or Ryan will kind of say, I think we're going in this direction. I didn't know when we started Liz that Liz was transgender, and she wasn't. When the first episode, it wasn't indicated. That was something that was evolving. And so that was something that, and then they wrote a flashback scene. They wrote a section where I was male. They showed me before my transgender journey. I was male with my family, and that I didn't know about. That episode didn't come up until later. So it's they're responding in real time many times. I think, and that's unusual for TV.
Right. Do you have any favorite stories from working on American Horror Story? People that you've worked with, moments that were like funny moments that happened on set?
I mean, there are a lot of things that happen. God, we were shooting in New Orleans for Coven and Freak Show, and I think it was Coven. Yeah, it was Emma Roberts, and we had the craft services, is where you have all the food, the fun foods, and so we had they had like a hot dog thing. It's okay. We had like a hot dog thing, and we had food, and we had a pond right beyond it, and there were alligators in there. And on set, our set was a alligator wrangler and a snake wrangler. And a young kid in shorts with a big long pole, and his job was to catch and kill the dangerous snakes before they got us. That was his job. And we had the alligator guy who was meant to warn us before the alligators lunged, basically. So, we were told, hey, don't go to Crafty with the hot dogs, because the hot dogs are really close to the pond, and the alligators can smell the hot dogs. Why have hot dogs next to an alligator pond? And in that shoot, Emma and I were doing a scene in the middle of a field, and the field was not too far from the alligator pond, on the other side of it. And both of us are kind of like, is this okay? Like, yeah, it's good, just go. And it's like 3 a.m, and we're shooting, and as we're shooting, we can hear movement. That's the sound of something large moving, thrashing. That's a tail. The tail. And they're like, keep going. So you're trying to act, and you're just like listening and kind of going, I mean, how close is the thing? Is the 17-year-old with a sharp stick really going to defend him? That was hard. No one died on that one, but
That's great.
we got lucky.
Yeah. One of the things you talked about is being able to work with some incredible actors throughout your time there. What have been some of your favorite co-stars to work with?
I love Kathy Bates. She's a really present actor. She's very honest as an actor, and she makes you a better actor. Basically, there are people who drain your talent from you through your feet. As you're acting with them, you can feel all your talent just going away. And they're bad, and they make you bad. You're like, oh my God, I'm not bad. We don't have many of those on American Horror Story, I must admit. And there are actors who make you better because they just make you better. They bring you to a certain level, and they challenge you in a way by being present. And Kathy's one of those. Paulson is amazing. Evan Peterson, I think, is one of those. He's amazing. I love working with Finn Whitrock. I think he's extraordinary. Cheyenne Jackson's extraordinary. Jessica's extraordinary. Lady Gaga's extraordinary. Everybody bring their A game, and that's the thing about Horror Story is that everybody comes ready to really work. I have not worked on a show where people sit there on their cell phones while you're shooting, which does happen in the industry, and they don't know their lines. Both on True Blood and Horror Story, everybody is ready to work. I never forget True Blood. Anna Paquin would show up first on the set, lines down, ready to go. And we had this, this guest actor came in, a lot of attitude, and she was complaining about the heat in the on the set. She wanted air conditioning turned on, and Anna was like, hey, I'm number one. I'm fine with it. If I don't complain, you don't complain. And when you work on a set, the actors, they create a culture, and if it's a culture of hard work and professionalism and a certain level of acting, everyone jumps up to that point. And like I said, that doesn't always happen on every set, but it always happened on A Horror Story, and it always happened on True Blood. Happened on Big Little Lies too. My God, Big Little Lies. Like that was a set where you better be ready. You better be ready. So the first thing I did on that was a scene with Nicole Kidman, where we had a 9-page scene on a witness stand, and they said action, and we went, and we did all 9 pages. Not a mistake. Nobody stopped. It was a huge scene with all these emotional turns, and we cut. And the director was like, "Oh my God!" And we were both like, "Uh-huh."
I wanted to ask you about NYC, the most recent season. This season felt very different to me, and it almost felt like I don't know Ryan Murphy's horror ode to Angels in America.
Yeah.
And I was just curious about what your experience was with this season, with reading the scripts, with sort of seeing the story unfold. What did this story mean to you?
I mean, it's funny you should say that, number one, because Joe Mantello, who was the lead in that, was the lead in Angels in America. He was Lewis. I saw him in 1992, I think, in that. And on Broadway, it was amazing. Zach Quinto has done Angels in America. Russell Tovey's done Angels in America. It's really interesting you should say that. Angels in America was written by Tony Kushner, one of our great playwrights. Stephen Spinelli was the lead. He won several Tonys for it. It's an amazing series of plays about the AIDS crisis. It's funny, my storyline was a little more, I was adjacent to that storyline in many ways. So I wasn't in the thick of it with those guys. But, I think the entire cast was gay. That was, except for Billie Lourd, but she's like, she gets, a free pass. Carrie Fisher, Sandra Bernhardt, Zach, me, Russell Tovey, Joe Mantello, Gideon Glick. Just so many people. And, we all bring our collective knowledge of AIDS to that. I lost my boyfriend to AIDS in 1999, in 2000 rather. Everybody has lost somebody. And so for us, it's not a story. For us, it was a reality. I lived in New York during that period. So, St. Vincent Hospital, where everybody died of AIDS, was torn down and turned into condos. I can't walk by that block because I'm like, I know so many people who died in that building used to be there. So New Yorkers, we have that kind of thing. And that was his homage to it, I think, in many ways. And it was, it was risky. I think it was really risky to do that. But he stayed true to his roots in that it was, you still had, people hacking off their arms and losing their ears and lots of blood and death. That was pretty gory.
Yeah.
Some of the dismemberment and stuff in that was pretty gory. And that angel of death thing was really, really, really disturbing. So he's satisfied. He ticked that box while he did some other things.
Yeah, cool. I want to give people a chance to ask questions. I'm sure you guys have a lot of great questions here.
I like to say sorry for your loss. Auch wenn it's my multi-years gone. I'm glad I got not AIDS, but in Germany it was really a big deal too. And I worked in gay bars, so I was the only normal what you see in America. All the gay guys, the lesbian woman, I had no problem. They were my best friend. They came all their advice to me, and I saw a lot that lost them. But it's sad when you lost any time. But this illness is today still dangerous, and people underestimating that. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank
and
you,
you get
Cinderella.
safe home. I hope I see you soon.
You will. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, back there.
after every first take. Okay, great. Let's do it again. Dennis, whoa. You know, one of my, I don't know where I got it from, but it was early on that I learned from somebody, some other actor, because, you know, to me, we learn from everybody. So I learned from everybody I work with, director, actor, writer. But I remember an actor I worked with said, always make a fool of yourself in the first take. Make a fool of yourself in the first day in rehearsal room. Go big. Because then you have room. You know, if you make an absolute idiot of yourself, you have nothing to lose. You know, and so then you can actually, and acting is about being vulnerable and about being open and about being available. So don't hold back. Just go for it. I did a Law and Order years ago. Not Law and Order. It was CSI crossover between CSI Vegas and CSI Mothership with Anthony LaPaglia. And I played this, I don't know, this kind of scummy guy who stole his church money, went to Vegas and gambled it all away to pay for his divorce or his addiction, I don't know what it was, and he lost it all and ended up killing somebody. Anyway, so I got arrested. And I had an interrogation scene with Anthony LaPaglia. And in the scene, he pushes my face down onto a glass tabletop to interrogate me. And I kind of knew the kind of actor he was, that he was going to actually probably really hurt me. And I was like, that's fine with me. Because if we do it well on the first take, I won't have to have a second take. And so sure enough, it was a brutal take. And it was like physically brutal. And in the take, you know, I just lost my shit. I totally lost it. You know, snot, blubbering, everything. And that was the only take we did. But both actors recoiled and were like, Jesus. But they left me alone. Because I had utterly debased myself in front of them, which the character did. Because I wanted to put down a big marker to say, this is what I'm going to do. So I want to be able to have the room to do my work. You know what I mean? So I'm a big one for, you know, go for it. And, you know, and TV, especially in the movies, you get 9 takes. You know what I mean? So they'll tell you when it's wrong. You know, it's like never negotiate with yourself. Let them tell you what you did wrong.
Great advice.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a wrong question to ask. It seems like it from what you said earlier, but what were your 2 favorite characters to play in American Horror Story? And I say 2 because I might know your first one.
I love all my. I really do love all my characters. And you know, when you create characters, they're, you know, they stay in you in a weird way. There's like they always like a little part of your brain is still there waiting to, you know, have life again. You know, undeniably Liz. You know, just a great character.
That's why I asked for the best 2.
Great character. But you know, I can't limit it to 2. You know, I do a lot of theater. And my first career was only theater for years, for like 20 years. And I have a lot of those characters in my head who I absolutely adore. I did a play called Take Me Out on Broadway, and I played a character named Mason Marzak, who's a character who I adore. He's someone in me recently. Jesse Ferguson is playing him right now in New York. I love Larry. I love Russell Edgington. You know, he's just a great, great, great character. You know, I don't think I'll ever visit him now, but too late for that. Yeah, so many.
I want to jump in with one quick question because I forgot to ask this before. My friend Lily, who does an American Horror Story panel every year here on American Horror Story and Dante, and we've done that panel together for a few years. She couldn't be here this year, and she's devastated she didn't get to meet you. But I know she'll kill me if I don't ask. Do you see any parallels with American Horror Story and Dante's Inferno, like as a structural device in going through the seasons?
I've never thought of that. Doesn't mean that it's not true. I love Dante's Inferno. I'm also a big Virgil fan, so I love the fact that, you know, Virgil is a figure in Dante's Inferno. You know, for all I know, that is Ryan's game plan, or not. But we don't always know the unconscious things that are working on us. And obviously Dante's Inferno is not simply, you know, about a plot. It's a massive idea. what is hell? You know, Sartre says hell's are the people. What is hell? What are the levels of hell? We all talk about that, you know, the ninth circle of hell, whatever it is. And certainly American Horror Story, you know, plays with different levels of hellish experience in hell. So I think it's a really interesting idea. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, they say, who knows?
Who knows? Right. That's I'm assuming. But
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Thank you for answering that. Back to the questions. So there's hands over here. Yes.
So I know you've been asked a lot about your favorites already, but I was wondering if there were any seasons of American Horror Story where you just felt like more connected to the actors and like you felt like your character was like the best of yourself and it was like your favorite season that you acted in.
You know, again, all the seasons are so different that they all have a different sort of flavor. You know, Roanoke, I definitely felt disconnected. That's partly because it was disconnected. There was no through line. I mean, there's no through line.
Yeah.
You know, there was no one to follow. And I played a guy in the basement on the TV. People were like, "You were in Roanoke?" I said, "Yes, I worked really fucking hard on it." I had a huge fucking beard. I was pulling glue out of my face for months. But you know, I appeared on a video playback in the TV. So it's very hard to get any sense of me being there. I think everyone had that kind of weird experience on Roanoke, even though I thought it was really, really clever. And I thought Leslie Jordan was extraordinary in it. I mean, Leslie Jordan, you know, really talk about an interesting man and actor. And he could be, you know, kind of a joke, or he could really pull it out. And I thought he was really good in that one. I thought he was amazing in that one. My favorite Leslie Jordan story was, you know, at the end of that story, I think it was like episode 9 or 10, we're all doing a reunion panel. All the actors who were in the reality show reacting of the real thing. It's so confusing. And we all show up in this panel show, and you know, I didn't have any lines. I had like one line, and Leslie had no lines. Well, that didn't stop me. Every take, I was like, Jesus Christ, Leslie! He just like took over, and God love him. You know, it ended up in the final cut. I was like, oh God.
Yes.
Yeah, I should have researched this before asking this question, but do you know what the current state of the television series The Nevers?
Oh God, The Nevers. So The Nevers, we did 12 episodes, meant to be one season, first season. And we did the first 6, and then COVID got us. So we finished like 4 or 5, and then we came back in November of 2020, and we finished up the last of the 6. In the middle of all that, Joss Whedon got canceled. So HBO let him go, he quit, fired, I don't know, whatever the story was. So he was gone. So the creator of the show is gone. Which is always difficult for a show, because that wasn't what HBO paid for. They brought in a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful showrunner, and she reimagined a lot of it. And then we shot 6 more episodes over a period of a year. We actually shut down again for winter COVID in 2020, and we came back and finished it up. And those back 6 were meant to be premiered on HBO in the fall of 2022. And they kept postponing it, and then Discovery bought HBO, which is a terrible idea. Discovery then cut and killed Westworld, Raised by Wolves, and The Nevers, amongst other shows, because it didn't fit in with their brand of, I don't know. So The Nevers ended up on a thing called Tubi TV and on Roku. So apparently it's on Tubi and Roku, but it's not on demand. So it's weirdly scheduled. So you have to look ahead and go, oh, it's on at 9 a.m. on Thursday. So it's out there. You can find it, but it's not in a convenient way to watch it, which is a crime, because the last 6 I think are great. I mean, the first 6 are great. Joss Whedon's a brilliant man. I love the way he thinks. He's so crazy. But the last 6 are more coherent, I feel like, and there's some really, really beautiful things in there, and I wish everyone could see them. Laura Donovan was great, Anne Skelly was great, James Norton was great, Ben Chaplin was great. There's just great, great actors. Now, Tom Riley, And their work deserves to be seen, and so it is there somewhere, but it never really got shown. Yeah, and I love my character in that.
It's a shame. Yeah, back there.
Yeah, I'm going to revisit, Russell Edgington.
Yeah.
So did you take, when you're developing that character, did you take any inspiration from outside sources, any people you knew? How did you develop the accent? I'm kind of curious how you put them together.
That was a great character because he was in the books, but I didn't feel like he didn't come into focus to me in the books. And the books didn't match what they were writing in the scripts. They were writing a much more powerful, dangerous character than the books. In the books, he's an antique dealer. He's kind of mousy, and it didn't fit with what they wanted. And so, Alan Ball said basically, "Do your thing." And so, Theo Alexander, who played Talbot and I, went on a long walk in Runyon Park, Runyon Canyon, and we negotiated our backstory. And I was like, "So, when do you think we met?" And he was like, "I think he's Greek." I won't do his accent. He was like, "I think we met in 1300." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Where did we meet?" He was, "We met in Constantinople." And I was like, "Okay. And I said, "Maybe it was a costume ball." "Yes, it was a costume ball." And I was dressed as Alexander the Great. And I said, "And I was dressed as Caesar." And he was like, "You're right." And so we just created this thing. And then, in one of the scripts it said that I'm almost 3,000 years old. And I was like, 3,000 years old? So that would put him like 1,000 BCE. 1,000 BCE, well, where is he? Where would he be? And I remembered that the Celts, the original Celts, I'm a Celt, were located in Romania, in the Danube, as a wandering people, and they wanted to find where the sun set. They wanted to find the bed of the sun. So the Celtic people, and were mixed with Gauls, it started a little mixed up there, started migrating west, and they got as far as Ireland, and they got stuck. They couldn't go any further, because they were looking for the bed of the sun. And in Celtic Irish culture, there's a god called Lu, L-U-G-H, and Lu is the sun god. And it's a play called Dancing at Luna, subject by Brian Friel. That's about an ancient pagan Irish festival in Lyon, which is called Lugdunum, which is where Claudius, the Emperor Claudius was born, and Roman Claudius. Lugdunum was a Roman city, and one of the principal deities was Lu, the sun god. So when you start looking for this stuff, you start kind of going, okay, where is my guy from? What was he? And so I figured that was a good venue for him. He had to come from somewhere. Where would he be? And I just kept exploring. I looked up Gaulish. I found some evidence of the Gaulish language, and it was considered to be a Germanic language. So I'm like, well, if he's got an accent, it's probably going to be German. But then, he's hiding out in Mississippi, this 3,000-year-old vampire, so he pretends to be a Southerner. You know what I mean? They're shapeshifters, so he's becoming a Southerner, except when he got angry, his Germanic accent came out. Because that's who he really was. And how when you get mad, you forget, the person you've created, and you become your real self. And so I'm from Michigan, so I get really mad, my Michigan comes out. It's ugly. So, like that, and the whole thing was just a carte blanche to create a character, and it was really exhilarating. I loved it.
That's cool. Yeah.
That question was very similar to mine. I was going to ask if you did read the books to research anything about the character, because he was kind of.
I did read the books, yeah. So much more to it, so. We read the books, and then we diverged from the books as it goes on. Reading source material like that, you got to be careful because you don't want to get chained to it. And she was on set a lot, Charlene, and you want to be respectful, but you also don't want to ask her permission.
Sure.
And when she sells the rights, she gives up that thing. And so respectful, but also at the same time, we're doing a parallel creation. It's an homage, but it's parallel.
So have you done other...
I talked with him, and before I shot scenes, I would call him in Hong Kong. I was shooting in India, and I would ask him what his memories were of that day, of that scene, because we improvised all of our scenes. And so I wanted to make sure I got his point of view, and I tried to imitate him, impersonate him, but also represent him. But that was really intense. And
Did you enjoy that challenge of?
I loved it. He claims that I did not do a good job. But people who know him said I did a very good job. Let me get him back there. I feel like he's been...
Oh, thanks. I was just going to say, I feel like one of your gems, which is maybe a sleeper in the culture, is the anniversary party.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you had any general impressions of that, or also impressions or memories of Parker Posey.
I love Parker Posey. I did Anniversary Party in 2002 or 3. Jennifer Jason Leigh and Alan Cumming co-wrote the script. Jennifer Jason Leigh's mother is a very famous screenwriter. Jennifer Jason Leigh, Alan and I all did Cabaret together on Broadway. I did it in 98 to 2000. I played the Nazi, of course. Jennifer followed Natasha Richardson, who played Sally Bowles first, and then Mary McCormick played it, and then Jennifer played it. And then Alan Cumming played the MC, as did Michael C. Hall. He played it for a while. And I did Romeo and Juliet with Michael C. Hall. But they came to me with that script, and they were like, we want you to play a guy who's a recovering alcoholic who's really angry. And I was like, oh, I'm playing myself. It was a really interesting experience. And, Gwyneth Paltrow's in the in the movie, and John C. Reilly, and Jane Addams, and Kevin Kline, and Phoebe Cates. And it was like and Parker Posey. It was John Benjamin Hickey. It was a crazy, crazy, crazy cast. And I definitely was like starstruck and sort of like, oh my God. And I hadn't done that many movies, so I was a little bit kind of out of my element, whatever. But I loved doing it. I think it was and it was one of the first movies done on tape, on video, and not on film. It was digital, which meant that the lighting kit was a little different. And it was the first time you could set up lights like that. And that movie, we had an improvised section in that movie. So at one point, it's a talent show in the middle of the movie. The entire thing is improvised. So we all improvised our scenes, didn't tell anybody else what we were doing, and then they taped it live. So we didn't know until it happened. It's a really beautiful movie, I think. It's a really great movie. Yeah.
That's awesome. Back there? Yeah.
What other
Mark.
What other celebrities have you been mistaken for? Have you ever been mistaken for other celebrities?
Bob Odenkirk, which drives me crazy. He's a great guy. He's a wonderful actor. I'm Dennis O'Hara. I was mistaken for Gopher in the Love Boat once. God, who else? My favorite story of that is, you know Ron Rifkin is. Ron Rifkin's a lovely actor, amazing actor. And you know who Joel Grey is. Well, Ron spent his entire life being mistaken for Joel Grey, and it drove him absolutely bonkers. It drove him. I was on the street with him one day when someone thought he was Joel Grey, and I thought he was going to hit this woman. But that's not that many. But yeah, I usually get they don't know who I am. I mean, not as much anymore, but it used to be that people would ask if I was their dentist, or if I was their waiter, or if I went to high school with them, or, all kinds of random things. And I would just very politely go, no, I don't think so. No, aren't you from Peoria? I'm not from Peoria.
See a hand on the side here? Yeah.
Did you enjoy your experience on Broad City?
I did. They were great. I love both of them. I had stomach flu during that entire shooting. I was vomiting in between every take. I was so sick. I loved them, and I didn't tell them because I didn't want them to feel bad, but I was so sick. And at the end of that scene, I had to stuff my face with cake. My mouth is twinkling even as I think about it. They were great. I love that show. I love them. They were so funny. They were so fun to work with. That was a great show. Broad City. Yeah.
It's a very memorable cameo at that whole show.
I loved it. It was so perverse. My sex doll. Yeah. Look it up.
Oh, we got some hands back here, all the way in the back.
Oh,
yeah.
I recently stumbled upon Army of One.
Oh my God, I'm sorry. What did you think?
It's a mind-blowing mind fuck. I mean, everybody needs to see it, by the way.
Nicolas Cage, Russell Brand, me, Rainn Wilson. I don't remember. We didn't meet.
Niecy Nash? No, the blonde.
I love that none of us in this room. But I was wondering if you had like a secret for keeping a straight freaking face around him just over, being Nicolas Cage like that.
It was easy because that was the craziest shoot ever. Army of One is I don't know what it's about. I played a CIA station chief something in Pakistan, and Rainn Wilson was all we were government guys in Pakistan, and he was a loose cannon soldier. I don't know what it was about. I just shot it. Anyway, we shot it in 2015 in Morocco, and we arrived and we all stayed at a massive empty hotel called the Sahara Palace that had like 300 rooms, of which 5 or 6 were occupied, and the rest were empty. So the staff was just like, you walk by the restaurant, and the staff was all like, there's nobody to serve. And and my son was running up and down the whole hallway because there's nothing to do. He was just running up and down the hallways, and Rainn Wilson's kid was there, and his wife was there, and so our kids played together. And the writers were staying at the hotel. Rajiv Joseph was an amazing playwright and writer, and his partner, who I can't remember right now, and Larry Charles, the director who directed a lot of Seinfelds and a lot of Curb Your Enthusiasm, told us, "Don't do the script. I hate it. Don't say a word of that script. Don't do the script. Just come up with your own stuff." The writers were on set every day and were eating breakfast with us. There's only 5 of us in the hotel, so you can't avoid them. So they're there every morning in the hotel, and Rainn and I are rewriting our scenes on a laptop and going, "Hey, hi, how are you guys? No, we're just hi." And they're trying to hide it from them. And Nick Cage didn't agree with the plan, so he did the script. But we didn't. So he would just say lines from the script that had nothing to do with what we were saying. And I'm not even joking. That's what it was. I never met Russell Brand. He did his stuff somewhere else. He plays God. It was. I guess I should see it someday. But it was such a nightmare.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm backtracking back to True Blood, but the part you mentioned earlier, how you always go over the top at the first take. That character was so over the top when, especially after Talbot died, the grief. You made me actually cry with the grief, the depth of the grief. At the same time, I was laughing because it was over the top.
Yeah.
But like you said before about going over the top in the first take, when you have a character like that who is already so beyond the top, were you ever told to camp it up or ratchet it up?
No. No. It's funny because in TV you don't always get a lot of character direction. You know what I mean? You're not always getting things about your backstory and motivation. You're getting things like, Dennis, just make sure you're like that. Just keep your head down a little bit because we're getting a weird light in your eyes. You know what I mean? Or when you enter, can you sort of like do a weird pivot because we're catching the back of your wig. So just like, if you just kind of do that really quickly. So you're not always getting acting notes, you're getting really technical notes, you know what I mean? Or you're stepping across a massive cable as you're trying to elegantly step into a room, and so you don't want to trip, and so you're doing these weird, if you can see what's happening in the waist down, you'd be horrified. Again, True Blood, one of my favorite memories was I played Michael McMillian's. We played the boyfriend of Michael McMillian, who was Steve Newland, who was the head of the church and then became a vampire. And we became boyfriends. And at one point, we killed a bunch of frat boys, and we slow danced in their blood. Only on True Blood, but it was a serious scene talking about a relationship. So we can't cap it up. We have to play it for real. We have to play the absolute stakes because the situations can't be. We're slow dancing in frat boys' blood. So that takes care of panic. We need to be straight.
I think we have time for one more question, and then we should wrap up.
I was just wondering if you had a suggestion, like you mentioned about the Broad City, and I made a note.
Yeah.
To look up that episode and watch it. But do you have a suggestion for one of your earlier works that you'd say, oh, you should check this out because it means something to you?
I love A Mighty Heart. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's a really tough movie. It's not an easy movie at all to watch. Really, really great actors in it. Anniversary Party is a good movie.
Which one?
The Anniversary Party. I love Once Upon a Mattress. I got to play with Carol Burnett, Tommy Smothers, Tracy Ullman. You know what I mean? First day of rehearsals, I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to try to be funny because these people are funny. So I was a straight guy, and I really love that. I'm trying to think of movies that I really love that people don't get to see. Dallas Buyers Club's a great movie. I mentioned Quarantine. I do like Quarantine. I think it's really, really scary. I did a movie which you might be able to find called Stephanie Daly with Tilda Swinton. I got to kiss Tilda Swinton. That was pretty fun. And Stephanie Daly, yeah. No one's ever seen that movie. It's so small. And then I will recommend my movie that I wrote and made called The Parting Glass. And that movie's about my sister killed herself in 2010. And so I made a movie to basically pay homage to her, to her life and to her story. And that's with Cynthia Nixon, Melissa Leo, the late great Ed Asner, Anna Paquin, directed by Stephen Moyer from True Blood. Oh, wow. And that's a beautiful movie. It's really well done, and it's really well acted. And Ed Asner, who's just like he was a handful, gave a really beautiful performance in that. I thought. I was really happy for him.
I didn't write down the first one you said was really deep.
A Mighty Heart.
A Mighty Heart.
A Mighty Heart, yeah, by Michael Winterbottom, the director. He did 24-Hour Party People, a movie called In This World, which is a really great, beautiful movie.
So is there anything you want to promote or any upcoming things you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I'm trying to think if I can.
Right.
I don't know. I think people know. I can. So I did a movie in London with Lupita Nyong'o called The Quiet Place, Day One.
Yes.
And so it's the prequel to the other movies. And Lupita is the lead. She's extraordinary. Joseph Quinn is also in it. He's extraordinary. It's a really beautiful movie. And I have a small part, but it's a really great part. And we shot it, in February, March in London. And I don't know when it's coming out. I'm sure they'll wait till next summer because it's a summer movie. But I think it's going to be great. What I saw of it. Yeah, that's a good one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys so much.
She's a thank you. That was great.